Welcome to Between the Brows podcast, presented by Buckventures Outdoors, where the guys talk about hunting, God, and everything in between. We've got a great show for you today, so sit back, enjoy, and let's get right into it.
Well, guys, welcome back to episode 2 of Between the Brows. Still presented by no one. We hadn't figured that out yet. We're getting there.
We do got some inquiries.
Do we?
Actually, we do, don't we, Chancey?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's news to me, but yeah.
No, remember Wednesday we find out. Remember we won't say who, but they have asked.
That's right. Yeah, that could be a good one. Yeah, it's our second one, so basically we're pros now. We got the first one knocked out. I think it went pretty good. Had some good feedback on it. People enjoyed it. Today's going to be a little different. The first one is kind of the backstory of Buckventures, how it started, kind of how we all got brought together, I guess you could say. And today, Jeff wanted to get controversial. He wanted to just dive right into it. And I said, okay. So,
well, you called me this morning or text me, whatever, said, hey, you got a topic or whatever. And, obviously, we could talk food plots or calling deer or whatever. But, today's deal, I think, is I think it is a controversial. I think it is something that is on people's mind, and I think it doesn't get talked about on one side. So, like I said, I don't want to spill the beans quite yet.
Mm-hmm. Well, again, today, like the first one, we got Chancey, Daniel, Jeff, and I'm Cole. So, yeah, we're just going to state our opinion, whether it's right or wrong, and go for it. But one thing that's kind of cool is y'all can't see him, but we got Anthony Randall in the room, which he's sitting in the corner. You remember we talked about going on a helicopter hog hunt. I think we just touched on it last one, and he's here. So tomorrow we're going hunting.
Yeah, we're going helicopter hunting, and I'm using an excuse to jump right in there with Anthony. We got Anthony's a veteran, and was in Afghanistan. He was a what do you call it? Paratrooper, jumping out of helicopters,
planes.
It kind of go right back
aviation
to where we
devices.
Yeah. Well, it is how I'm doing an opener retreat. Cole's always changing everything.
I'll get it correct, but yeah, we're excited for that. That's tomorrow, and
and then Mike Strong too, being they're great friends, and he was over there too, and then Mike's been a cop, and I guess Anthony has too, so just a great story that'll unwind a little further in a different episode, but yeah, it's cool stuff.
Yep. Well, I guess let's get right into it. So like I said, last time we talked about kind of the Buckventures, how it started, talked about some of the big breaks that got it to where it is today. But with the platform we got, there comes, I guess you could say, criticism or critique of the way that we do things. So one of those that we hear all the time is trophy hunting. If you follow Jeff and Daniel and them over the years, pretty much if you watch them hunt, they're going after the biggest deer they can, the oldest deer they can. And it's a pretty hot topic because there's a lot of people who, I don't know if they necessarily disagree with it, but they do, I guess, in a sense. They kind of poke fun or, critique, why are you passing these deer?
The whole deal is, are you a headhunter? And if you are, it's a bad thing. It's just a deal that has been labeled, I think. And to even before I want to get into it, all of it is first of all, dang, I started hunting. I shot a doe when I was 14, spined her. I shot more does. I shot more little bucks. One-horn bucks with this big a horn. Antler, I guess, and there was much of that. As I know you, Daniel, being in West Virginia.
Yeah, we didn't. If you shot a deer that was 100, I remember we still have it. I measured it's 121 inches. My dad had shot that hung on the wall forever, and we never even seen deer that big. It was a big deal. It was 120 inches. Right. So basically, if it had horns, we shot it. Yeah, that's just the way it was growing up.
Well, and that's how I was. But there was a point where I started going, man, I want to shoot a bigger deer. How do I do that? And, I guess before we even get all the way into it, this is my deal to look you right in the eye when someone says, oh, you're a headhunter or whatever. And there's so much of that with us. is my argument is, if you don't want to shoot a big deer, if you just want to go out and hunt, I'm all about it. I truly am. But don't get mad at me and definitely talk to me that way if I want to go after the biggest, oldest deer in the woods, and that's my passion. That's probably more my argument, Cole, than anything is, listen, I think it boils down to this, is knowing who you are. Don't go try to shoot a big deer because you're trying to be someone. Don't go, the other way because you want to, find out who you are. What trips your trigger? Well, right now, it hadn't always been that way, but tripping my trigger is the oldest, biggest, baddest deer there is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think, it's kind of an argument because, there's room for everybody to enjoy the outdoors. There's people who just want to go out and shoot whatever walks out. And that's fine. But to us, that's just not what we have set out to do. Obviously, you talked about, you grew up, you've shot a lot of arrows, got a lot of bloody arrows, shot a lot of deer with a gun, whatever it is. And I have too. I know everybody here has. But yeah, it gets to a point where you want to take that next step.
I think even past that, you take you and Chancey, for instance, y'all per se probably don't have the same deal as me and Daniel. Y'all had a more deal where you probably seen more television, you seen this, and you became who you are at a quicker deal, I would say.
Yeah.
I was with you this year, and I'm filming, and I'm thinking, dang, Cole just passed a big sucker here. But again, I credit you to who you are. If that's what you want to be and that's your deal, do it. Don't be criticized for it in a sense. And if you are criticized, be big enough to handle it, and I think we are, but I just want to hit it head on.
Yeah, I think that's true because definitely when we were growing up, we talked about last podcast, we grew up watching y'all and, Bill Jordan and juries and all that. So it got ingrained in me pretty quick. Like, yeah, I do. I want to go out and shoot the biggest deer I can. Now, not to say my first 10 deer were, they were not big. They were, maybe bigger than some people might shoot, but I got there pretty quick where I was, I would pass deer that, I was probably 10 or 11 years old and people would die to shoot, I guess you could say. And I just, for me, I just wanted to, and again, I'm hunting good places, that had good deer on it. So I guess, that is one part of it that we'll get into. But, it's definitely different for everybody.
Well, I think that I hear a lot, I don't know, people say, well, you're ruining the hunting industry. I'm like, how am I ruining the hunting industry? I'm just being who I am. And then again, I'm being what God has made me. And then I'm being just taking my steps wherever they lead me.
Well, and I think we all just, you come to, we're kind of men, and a little bit more of a challenge for us. There was a period where, it's an evolution in our hunting career for that matter. Some of them deer, when you started out, I hadn't shot a 125. So then once you've shot a few, out of respect for the deer, I just wanted to try to do better. I wanted to try to, for me, I wanted to try to do the best I could on that. It's about like if you're playing a pickup game and you're playing a whole bunch of 15-year-olds in basketball and you're beating them all the time, at some point you want to go to the next game and to the next game and try to challenge yourself. And for us, I felt like personally that's what it was for me, as we continue to get, because, it's let's just face it, killing that biggest mature deer is really difficult.
I think that score number is where you're at, too. I ain't saying somebody that's over in South Carolina.
Sure.
But we know Heath over there. Well, Heath goes after the biggest deer that he can find over. It might be a 120, but that's what he likes to do. Other people just shoot deer, whatever it might be. That's what they like to do.
Well, we've always said it. A big deer is relative to where you're at, right? So, some people, just no different than us. We go to different parts of the country. We're not going to shoot a 190 all the time in this state, as opposed to another one. So just trying to find the biggest, maturest deer and just setting your mind to that for a challenge for us personally.
Well, I'll just preface even Cole to Chancey. Cole's been here a few years. Chancey grew up in a pretty good state over there, but Chancey's coming here, and I kind of picture you more right now in your stage of, put something in front of me. I think you're more on the mature level, but you're just like, I'll shoot some deer.
Yeah, for sure. And, I grew up, the first deer I ever shot was a basket rack 6, and I shot it 40 yards with a bow and didn't even know it was a buck until I got up on it. because that was my first deer ever, first thing that walked on my chute. But like you said, we kind of touched on last week, learned through TV, and that evolution kind of happened a little bit quicker for me as well, is just wanting to shoot the big deer or at least bigger deer, right? And, I let a lot of deer walk, growing up, but that was okay for me because that's what I wanted to do. But I think a lot of where this controversy comes in, I think, is a little bit of ego. And, that kind of spreads out across the whole deal is, people don't shoot a deer because they're afraid of what their friends are going to think. And that, I think, is kind of, where we go wrong a little bit. But if somebody wants to pass a deer because in their heart they want to manage something, then all the more power to her. And that's neither good nor bad. That's just dependent on, if he wants to go out and shoot the first thing that walks, then perfect. Yeah. And that's great. But I mean, that's kind of where I stand on it.
Well, and like I said, I think it's a deal with me. I mean, I remember going to Northwest Oklahoma. I've been hunting around here, and I'm shooting everything that move, and I had fun. Don't get me wrong, I learned a lot. But when I got to Northwest Oklahoma, I remember going out there and shooting a pretty wide deer. Probably looking back, maybe 120. And I thought, man, it's a really good deer, and I'm liking it. And I remember going into the check-in station. That's back when they checked them in. And I think my buck was the third littlest buck that morning. And I thought, man, I want to learn, and I want to shoot those bigger deer. And that's my passion. And I don't want anybody to take that away from me. And I don't want them to be like, why would you pass a 160? That's ridiculous. What are you trying to teach? I'm not trying to teach nothing. I got a television show. This is what I love to do. I'm just trying to be real. And I get it that I'm in Kansas and that we have better property now than when we once did. But I only get one deer there, and I have the time, and I pass a 160 because I know there's a 185-inch deer there. That's just the way it is. That's where I'm going to continue to be. And again, I'm not pointing to you that you can just go shoot deer. I'm fine about it. But here's the other gripe I have. If somebody wanting to shoot a bigger deer, well, I can tell you how to do it. You got to pass some deer. You got to work hard to be in a place where there is big deer. I get it too that somebody might make more money than other people. But that's just the way it is. I mean, I can't help that. I didn't start out with money. I'll tell you that right now. I started out with a passion to hunt deer. I started out with a passion when I was in Northwest Oklahoma to do anything I could to be able to hunt bigger deer. And basically what that meant is I worked hard, but I didn't have a lot of money for these properties. Yeah, and they're high. I get it, guys. But all of a sudden, I would get a couple different guys that made way more money than me, and they would lease the property, and I would just kind of be the workhorse for them to come in, and then I would get to hunt those properties.
And I think there's a way around. Like if, financially, if you don't have the means to go, buy a big lease, if you truly want to get into some ground, I think that there's also a way. You just have to get creative with it. And, whatever that looks like, which that topic's probably, we could do a whole podcast just on that topic.
Well, and I can tell you right now, if this was the time that I grew up, I truly believe where I would be using the internet, I would be like, hey, Iowa guy, you ain't got no pigs, and swapping some hunts. I guarantee it can be done. It's just, if you work hard enough, can't it?
Yeah. I mean, there's so many. You look back 20 years ago when we were doing this, we didn't really have that kind of access. I mean, now, I'm friends with 4,000 people on social media that I don't even know who they are. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's so many opportunities for that. Like you said, I mean, even a turkey hunt, you might have turkeys and somebody might have big deer somewhere else where you can, find ways to do it. There's a lot of opportunities. And even some of the state ground now has become pretty exceptional. You see big deer coming out all over the country.
Right. Well, and I can put it to this, because I know someone out there is going to be like, they're going to be mad. They're going to be like, yeah, you guys got the best ground. You're in a good state, whatever it might be. But it'd be like if we were looking at some of the guys in Iowa. If I'm looking at Lee Lakowski, or if I'm looking at Mark Drury, or some of these guys, and I'm like, well, if I had that, let me just tell you, these guys have worked their tail end off. And I think that's the way we need to look at people. Yeah, you shot a big deer. That's awesome. Not, trying to put someone down so you can build yourself up. And that's what I see a lot of in that, where that argument, again, is both sides. But again, give it up to them. I mean, these guys have worked hard. Is there luck involved at times? Absolutely. But I truly believe in anything that we do, I think you get what you put into things.
Well, and I mean, we're the first ones, you know this. I mean, we go shows all the time. Somebody walks up and pulls their phone out and shows us a 100-inch deer, and they're all excited about it. I'm just as happy for them. Is anything, you can be who you are. I mean, you say it all the time, just be who you are. I mean, if that's where you're at, you know, don't, for what we do, we've just decided, and that's what we enjoy. That's our passion, like you said. So,
well, to be clear, I think that's our argument today, is not to say our way's right. That is not what we're saying. We're just saying this is who we are. I mean, I'm going to tell you right now, when you call me a headhunter, you bet I'm going after the biggest, oldest deer I can find. I can promise you. And especially on my own property. You want to call me a headhunter? You bet. Put me in that category.
Well, there's a lot of times, even, you know, especially with the age deal, you know, we pass some of the biggest deer in our farms, we're not shooting because they're not the oldest. So, yeah, there's arguments obviously both ways. You know, we get messages all the time on YouTubes and social posts, you know, yeah, man, if we had your ground, we could shoot the deer you do too. And I guess to that we say, well, yeah, maybe. I mean, probably some of you, and then some of them would probably, we talked about earlier, some of them would probably, you know, if they went on their Kansas farm, they'd probably get there and run every deer out of the county.
Well, and I'll tell you this, I've been saying this for a long time, Cole. I will not apologize for having good ground. Again, I just stated where I come from, and that was just hard work, and I didn't have the best ground. I didn't have whatever, and I worked my butt off, as Daniel has, and I know you guys had. You guys had a vision, and that's where you're at. So I won't apologize for having good ground. But to your point, yeah, I think there is some guys that could come into our Kansas ground that are probably good woodsmen, and they could go to town and shoot those big deer, because I truly believe you're only as good as the ground you're going to hunt. But I can promise you, there's many guys, they don't know. They would come in and they would go to walking around, they would do things whatever, and that's just the way it is. You know, that's the way I truly believe that. I know that to be a fact.
You looking at me?
Nothing?
I'm trying to get a response, but
Yeah.
Daniel just didn't.
I
He's like,
agree.
Well, I was waiting. I jumped in last time, so I was kind of giving everybody a chance.
But you're the second wisest here.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Well,
You heard that, didn't you?
yeah.
I got all this white. You can bet I'm the wisest.
Yeah. Well, you know, there's so many different ways you can go about this. Like I said, I mean, you shouldn't apologize for having good ground, because we've worked really, really hard on that. And same thing with some of these guys that work every day. Jeff work 5-6 days, work their tail off to make a little extra money to be able to pay for that lease, or to be able to pay to go somewhere like that. You know, I mean, it's not something that just comes easy, for that matter. I mean, just because you can, all of a sudden it looks like, well, you know, you got the good ground, and you can't apologize for where you live, for that matter. You know, it happens to me a lot. Everybody knows I'm from West Virginia, and I get a lot of flack from the people where I kind of grew up, and you know, they say things to me, well, you know, you're living out there and you're living here now. But I got friends that are doing the same thing in West Virginia now, because they're truly passing deer. And like I said, they made that evolution, that step in there. So it can be done in a lot of places. I mean,
one way I could put it too, Daniel, is we're living in this deal now where we're even getting these things pointed as, well, you're not hunting public ground. I'm like, no. But I would say this, we do have some of these guys hunting public ground. We got the boys down at Seek One, you know, they're not spending a lot of money. They're going and knocking on doors. But what does it all have in common? Who's shooting the big deer on public ground? Who's like Lee going, it's all work. I can tell you that right now. Heck, we started with Buckventures out in public ground in North Missouri and Iowa and that kind of stuff, and we've shot some big deer there. Would I go back to that? No, because I've worked hard this other way. That's what I chose to do. And I mean, like I said, I can't. It just blows my mind when someone says, you're not hunting public ground.
Well, then you look at Mark Drury now, what he's doing. And I mean, he's not got big pieces of ground and managing. I mean, he's shooting a lot of these deer on 20 and 40 acre pieces of ground, where he's just letting them go, letting them age, hunting them the right way, and having tremendous success in doing it. Now, he's in Iowa and Missouri and stuff, but he's killing these deer where everybody said, well, you got to have big ground. You got to have a lot of stuff to do that, and you don't.
Yeah, and I think it also goes back to what Jeff said earlier is being who you are as a hunter, right? And there's a lot of people that they love the public land feel too, and it's almost like an adventure to them, and that's great, and that's really for them, that's what it's all about. And that's just like if they go in and they want to kayak in and do the adventure deal on public land and they shoot a 120-inch deer,
awesome.
then that to us that's like shooting a 180, and that's fine. But
I think it boils down to, Chancey, to being your goal.
Right.
I remember, a few years ago, I wasn't a good elk hunter. I didn't hardly know nothing about it. I started elk hunting a little bit. I killed one out on a pretty good hunt up there in New Mexico. But then I thought, my goal is to go to Colorado by myself and go kill a bull. Well, it took me 2 years. And I didn't shoot a big bull, maybe a 280, whatever he is down there. But I was proud of that. But that was my goal. But if my goal now is to go, I'm going to go try to shoot a 340. You can't take that away from me. And the other big topic here is money. That's what we get thrown up in our face all the time. You got a lot of money. First of all, I don't think we're considered to have a lot of money. Do we do very well? Yeah. Again, back to hard work. No one give us this. And Mark Drury buys his 80. He doesn't lease them. We have finally got 2 years ago, guys, I shot my first deer on property that I own. Mm-hmm. So a lot of that was lease, and now I get to own some ground. So again, I ain't pointing a finger at I'm just thinking there's a lot of fingers being pointed here, and I feel like no one's defended this.
Yeah. It's, I don't know. Basically, don't apologize for owning ground. Don't apologize for shooting deer on public ground. Don't apologize for shooting a 100-inch deer if it makes you happy, and don't apologize for shooting a 200 or 180 if it makes you happy. Everybody's got their own, way of doing things or own goals. So,
I think that's well said. I think it's we shouldn't apologize for being a hunter.
We should be supporting. I mean, it's the hunting community. It's obviously it's grown. I think it's grown a lot. It's continuing to grow, especially more women and stuff are getting involved. We should be. Especially social media, it's crazy what you see on social media. Especially, you go check our page. Yeah, the hate comments that you get. I mean, there's a lot of love
from the big deer to the little deer. People get on bash people shooting little deer, and then they turn around and people getting bashed shooting big deer. I don't understand why it can't just be whatever you enjoy. At the end of the day, we're all hunters. That's right.
At the end of the day, we're all hunters.
Well, and there's bow hunters against gun hunters. There's crossbow hunters against bow. I'll tell you probably the biggest thing, and you guys may not know this, I think Daniel does, but probably the biggest bash that I've ever gotten was you can go to YouTube now and you can see Lucky get shot on there. Well, Lucky was a 187-inch deer, big typical. I'm chasing on fair chase. And again, back to we haven't brought up the legality. If it's legal, and at the time, Oklahoma, you could have a bow with you, or if it's gun season or muzzler season, you could have that muzzler. You could carry two weapons, and I did that. And I got my bow in my hand, and I've called it Lucky, and here he comes, and boy, I got tension on the string, and I'm going to shoot him, and all of a sudden he skirts me, and I put down my bow, and I grab that muzzleloader, and I kill him dead as a doornail.
How dare you? Yeah,
how dare me? They come out of the woodwork, said I cheated the deer. And I mean, my response to that, as it was then, is the same today. Is if you don't like it, don't watch it, because I ain't shooting him for you. And I think as TV host and being in the outdoor industry, we all need to be careful that we ain't shooting something for someone else. I'm hunting for myself. And we get filmed, it goes on television, but that is what I think we all have to do, is stay true to who we are. And that's why I told him, listen, I didn't do it for you. I shot this deer for me.
Yeah, it's well said. Very, very well said. I mean, so many times it's just judgment on that. I remember when that happened, and like I said, the bow hunters just come out of the woodwork and just smashed you for it. And what they don't know is they ain't never been to Northwest Oklahoma where there's 2 trees in the whole place. I mean, like it's not like you have a whole lot of options for a bow. I mean,
Well, we talk about too, just kind of making fun of that. Is if they open a bazooka season, we would hunt with a bazooka.
I can tell you that if that happens, I will own a bazooka. I mean, my passion is hunting with a big deer. Now, let me just rephrase this. If you're a bow only guy, hey, I love it. That's your challenge for yourself. I ain't gonna knock you one bit. If you're a gun only guy, I ain't gonna knock you one bit. If you're whatever it is, if it's legal. Now, if you're hunting high fence, I'm all about it. Go hunt high fence. The one thing there, it's probably another day for another controversial deal, but don't you go hunt high fence and act like you ain't. Don't you go shoot you a 200 and then come and act like not say anything. That's another day.
Yeah, we can go on that.
That's a whole nother can of worms right there.
Another day.
Yeah, but if that's what you're into and that's where you want to go hunt, then great. I mean,
Sure.
I mean that's all the time. People they do this on Africa all the time. People want to bash people going to Africa, and I'm like, well, if that's what they want to do, then that's what they want to do. I mean, what are we worried about that for? I mean, everybody's hunting. Everybody's, I mean, we're all buying bows. We're all donating to, to licenses and conservation, and we all care about the animals and. I mean, we just all have a different want. We want to shoot big deer. Some people want to go out and stack does and have fun. Duck hunters, they want to go shoot a lot of ducks. And I mean, to each his own for that matter.
Well, I think one thing we're pretty lucky. I mean, we kind of hunt for a living in a sense, and so we get to spend a lot of time hunting, especially during the fall. And there's some people who they might get 1 or 2 weekends a year, and that's all they got. And if they go out and they just want to shoot a deer. So again, it's to each their own. So
I agree.
No way is right. No way is wrong. If it's legal, it's right, and you have the freedom to do what you want. It's
well, yeah. If you're legal, and I would throw ethical in there. You're ethical. I truly believe about respecting these deer. I mean, I love them. Whether that's a doe, a fawn, a big buck, I love these deer. I would never want to hurt them, make them suffer, anything like that. I mean, I got a real soft heart for them. I drive down going to church and I see a deer in a fence or something on a cold morning. I'm going down there to get him out. And I think that is where we need to be as hunters, that we care about conservation, that we do care about the next hunters. But again, let that hunter that loves to trophy hunt, head hunt, whatever it is, let him go be that. I don't think there's a wrong or right reason. I mean, do I eat my deer? Absolutely. Do I donate a lot of deer to people? Absolutely. That ain't the number one reason I shoot them. I'm going out. I love to shoot these big deer. I love to eat them. I love the game. It's a chess match. It's this, that. That's what I love.
And you love hanging them on your wall.
And I love hanging them on my wall and being able to tell that story. And again, there's an emotional deal for me. And maybe that's what someone might not have if they're not trophy hunting. I hunt these deer and I get such a relationship with them that it's unbelievable. We kill them and then you're just almost sad. There's a heart issue. I'm talking, if you've never done it, it's unreal.
Especially when you get, Jeff, you know this, I mean, there's deer that we really get connected to. I mean, we've had some deer where you've watched and looked at trail camera pictures and seen 25 times for 4 or 5 years, and you want to talk about getting connected to something. And I think that's where our passion comes in for the most part. It's like you're talking about how much we cared for that animal, and a lot of times you even hate to see them go because now you don't get a chance to chase them still. So,
farm changes.
Yeah.
Well, and I mean, God has given me the passion. I think God's given other people different things, but He truly uses His creation, uses these deer, whatever it is, mistakes out there that I make to come closer to Him. And again, that's my number one thing is to teach and use God or use my platform for God to help people find their way to Christ, to help people to know that this is a short time here, whether you're chasing a doe or whatever it might be, or you're chasing the biggest deer it is a short time here. And we shouldn't be fighting amongst each other. But like I said, this is a deal that a lot of people defend on the one side but don't on the other.
Yep.
And I think another thing we haven't really got into yet is managing properties too. And, Daniel said that, having that relationship with that specific deer, but also us managing these farms like we have been that's really, I've found a really big passion for managing deer ever since I was young, and just managing wildlife habitat. And really, having that management is almost as rewarding as shooting the deer, in my opinion. So when I was little, I was really fortunate. I was able to hunt about 1,000-acre farm that me and the farmer really kind of, tried to manage it a little bit.
Did you have a whole lot of money to be able to do that?
No. I guess I had a cute little 14-year-old face with a real high-pitched voice. Hey, can I come hunt?
There's a tip.
But no, we really tried to manage this farm, and passing those 3-year-olds, it like in my heart, I was okay with that. Now, was it hard passing those 3-year-olds? Honestly, not really. And it wasn't because I didn't want to necessarily shoot them, but it was because I almost got more satisfaction out of what could it be next year, right? And that was almost a bigger passion of mine than actually killing the deer. And that's something that we haven't even talked about. And that's something that I think we get grilled a lot. Also, is looking at YouTube comments and stuff of, oh, if I had a food, or anybody can shoot a deer over a food plot, or whatever. But management is almost just as rewarding as killing the deer, in my opinion.
And one thing too, which just to kind of play the opposite of that, I think there's a lot of younger people today who watch TV and they see, y'all shoot big deer, and so they go out and it might be their first deer and they're trying to shoot a 170. And I think people are missing out on a lot of the experience of it, and they're passing deer that they might not, in a sense too. So I would just encourage anybody who, if you're just getting into hunting, don't expect your first, 20 deer, to be.
Well, again, I could go this, Cole. I could be like, again, it's kind of back to what you are. Like say you ain't shot very many deer or whatever, and you're on a place that there's a 170-inch there, and he's on camera all the time, and that's what you want to go after. More power to you. I think what Cole's saying, though, is to be the best sometimes, you can shoot in your backyard. That's going to help you a lot. Shoot a lot of does. I think that'll help you a lot. And, because the thing about it is when people say pick a spot and they say aim small, miss small, that doesn't happen, I believe, just because your mind says, oh, I'm going to aim small. No, the only way that happens is over time and practice, because all of a sudden a 185-inch deer steps out. I can promise you right now, when you pull back on him, if you don't have that muscle memory and you don't have some blood, not to say every time because that wouldn't happen, but I'm just saying to be the best, you need those arrows that have hit those does in the right place. You need that stuff. I mean, that will help you. And that's what Cole, I think, is saying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I probably didn't phrase it right, but what else? Is that it?
Well, again, I can't read that.
On that topic.
Yeah. No, I think so.
And to touch on that a little bit, what Cole was saying is, for those that are just getting into hunting, don't let an idea of what you want to get to take the fun out of it at the beginning. Right. I mean, there's nothing wrong with going out and, getting bloody arrows. But if you're going to be passing a bunch of deer and then all of a sudden you're like, man, I'm passing these deer, I'm not seeing anything that I want to, and then you get discouraged, then, that's when you need to reevaluate and just be who you want to be.
I think you or Cole maybe said this is back to don't do it for someone else.
Exactly.
It's got to be what you want. You talked about wanting to, manage the ground and all that, and don't let anybody take that dream away from you. Don't, whatever that is the biggest thing. I mean, find out. A lot of times, guys, I'll just tell you, you got to look deep to know who you are. In even life, don't be the next guy. Be who you are, even if it's going to whatever. I mean, just be yourself. And I think that's our message today. Be yourself. And, and back to the Bible, guys, we can give a lot of opinions today on hunting. But the Bible says that we're to be kind to one another. We're to be truthful with one another. And I think that's all it is with this is, don't be mean to me and looking at, especially the things you don't know. I mean, how many deals do we get every year? Yeah, Jeff shot that in high fence. Daniel over hunting 5. And that's so untrue. It's just a lie. And I mean, those are the ones I think that are just mad for whatever reason. But again, I'm defending hunting today in maybe a different light, but I do want to be kind to everyone. I want to support the way you hunt. But I ask the same for us.
And I think that's something I know I struggle with sometimes. We obviously our goal is to shoot the biggest deer we got. And sometimes a neighbor or somebody will shoot a deer that we've passed. We could have shot him 10 days in a row, and they'll shoot him, and we get, we're like, dang it. I wish he wouldn't have shot that deer, but he's just as tickled pink as he possibly could be. And so that's something I know I got to work on.
Well,
I get so mad, but there's times I'm like,
well, sure.
man.
We, obviously windmills, one thing. If you haven't seen that hunt, go to watch Windmill on the YouTube channel. And obviously we went after this deer, me and you together, and it didn't work out. But what did we do? We, obviously we wanted to shoot the deer more than the lady that shot him, but we went to her and we congratulated her. And I think that is the what we all need to do. Again, did I wish I'd have shot it more than her? I ain't gonna lie. Yeah, I wish I'd have killed it. We've all had stuff like this happen.
But yeah. Well, I guess we kind of went over, how we define success. For us, it's typically the biggest deer we can, and definitely the most mature deer. And sometimes the most mature deer we got on places to hunt is 145, 150 inches, and you're not always going to shoot a 170. But
here's the deal Cole brought up one time. He said, we're always talking about. I mean, we might pass a 170, but don't be the guy that says, well, I'm going to shoot this deer because my neighbor will, or whatever. Bet on the deer. If he's a 4-year-old and that is your goal, again, if it isn't your goal, go after it. I don't care. But if it's your goal to grow big deer and then all of a sudden you change your mind and you're like, well, I'm going to try to shoot this deer because of the neighbor. I mean, that's when you're the neighbor.
Yeah, the quote was, if you shoot a deer because if you don't, your neighbor will, you're the neighbor. And I think that's pretty true. Some people that might hurt some people to hear that.
But I truly believe it. Again, if you're the neighbor that don't care what you shoot and you don't want to grow big deer, go after it. But if you're the neighbor that doesn't want to shoot, they want to grow the big deer, but you just shoot him because he's probably gonna get shot. Yeah, you're the neighbor.
Yeah. Well, what do we want to do? That you want to go on that?
I can't see because I ain't got my glasses.
What makes one hunter better than the next? Do we want to save this, or we want to? We're about 37 minutes in. We can probably knock it out.
Yeah. So what makes one hunter better than the other, Daniel?
That's a loaded question.
That is a loaded question.
That's really, really, really loaded. I think that it comes between, effort is a big thing, and for me personally, I think what gets overlooked. And Jeff, me and you've had this conversation before, is instinct. I really don't know how to put it into words. Sometimes certain people just understand deer hunting a little bit more. I mean, even guys we've hunted around for many, many times, and they've hunted as much as we can. Sometimes they still can't figure it out, and I think it just has to do a little bit about instinct. Some people are gatherers, some people are hunters. You know what I mean? And so. And it's to each his own, but as far as what makes one, obviously you got to have effort. We all know that. You got to put the work and you got to have effort to continually,
I think
on
a continual basis.
This isn't, anybody can go out and, I guess, get lucky.
This isn't 1 year,
This is talking about consistently shooting, I guess, big mature deer, or, whatever your goal is. What are you doing that makes you succeed at that goal? So this is being consistent.
It goes back to what we talked about, whether you're public hunting, whether you're hunting on private, whatever. I truly believe this. I would look at myself, and I was actually pretty good at a lot of stuff. I was pretty good at basketball. I was pretty good at roping. I was this and that. But I've never been, God didn't give me the talent to be the best at anything. And I even equate that to where we're at right now. But right, wrong, or indifferent, He give me a will to go be a go-getter and to see what I wanted, and I go get it. And I'm always learning. I have failed so many times. To this day, I'm 51. Cole's been over my shoulder. I've missed a lot of deer. Heck, but I never quit. This year I had one at decoy. He's right there at whatever. 20 yards,
19
yards and shoot under this deer. And but I didn't quit. I just grabbed another arrow. And I think it boils down to, I ain't hunting for you. Yeah. Did I show it? Are we showing it? Yeah. I'm not the guy going, no, Cole, we ain't going to show that. I got the deer. I'm not a quitter. I'm going to work as hard as I can. I ain't the best, but I've been fortunate to be able to shoot a lot of deer because I didn't quit going after the ground. I didn't quit, working hard to make more money. I didn't quit making that phone call.
And you didn't quit making mistakes.
No.
I mean, that's where when we can relate it to sports. I mean, young guys going into the NBA or NFL, that's why it takes them 4 or 5 years most of the time to be successful because they're a veteran. They know the mistakes. They've been through it. It's no different than me and you. It's seat time, butt time. We talk about it all the time. Nothing you can do in the outdoor world will compare to an actual butt time in the tree. We've had this conversation many times about wildlife biologists a lot of times trying to tell us deer activity, right? And they've never even sit in the woods. And so a lot of that success for us has just been pure experience,
Well, and one guy's success might be different than the others. I mean, obviously we hunt in northwest Oklahoma. We put a lot of time just on a hill. We go into kill. Well, there's different scenarios that we do, but we have figured it out in different areas. But here's the one thing I would say is hunting will humble you more than any other thing. I mean, what makes one hunter better than the other? I mean, I think for one, it's humility. Is because if you are a guy sitting there bragging all the time, you're a liar that you get it done all the time. If you're hunting fair chase whitetail with a bow and arrow gun, whatever it is, bazooka, you still get whipped all the time. If you're hunting big mature deer, and that's what we talk about a lot here is we fail, I'd say 90% of the time. And I'm okay with that. God has made it where when we do succeed and you get him on the ground, oh my goodness, I just can't describe it.
Well, yeah, we hunt, I don't know, 90 to 100 days a year. And if you, Jeff Danker, shoot 3 or 4 deer a year, that's pretty good. That's a good year. So that's, a 96% failure rate.
Yeah.
So success is not easy, especially, now it does get a little harder because we are going after, bigger, older deer. It makes it a little bit tougher, but don't think you're just going to go out and be successful every hunt.
And I think there's two sides of the coin where there's a lot of things that are in your control that you can put yourself in the best position. But at the end of the day, they're wild animals and you don't control everything. And kind of that brings me to the story about me and Daniel this year in Kentucky. In the first night that we went after the big 186, he comes in, mills around in the brush for an hour, and then comes and he needs to take, 3 more steps, and he can shoot him. And another deer gets spooked, blows, and we just feel so dejected, like it was over. And that's just stuff that's out of our control. But you just got to saddle back up. And the next night, went back in there and shot him at 25
Well, I can
yards.
bet you anything, knowing Daniel, all of a sudden his mind's going. And he's wondering, did I mess up? Should I have done this? And he learns from it. And that, to me, is maybe the answer to the question, is what makes one hunter better than the other. Someone that's processing things all the time and trying to get better, understands that he'll fail, but you're putting in things in place probably even the next day.
Yeah, actually, we were severely deflated. And that's literally all we talked about for the next 12 hours was the mistakes. Did we do it? Did we, and trying to put that puzzle together. I mean, I don't know if we either one of us slept that night just trying to figure it out,
But the miles that you went through in your brain, even I know as y'all were going to hunt that deer, the access over and over in your mind, the when, what are we going to do? How are we going to do it? And that is the kind of thing I think that makes one hunter better than the other. And again, I have to bring this up because Chancey brought it up, and this could be a whole nother podcast, but is that the night Chancey about pooped his pants?
Yes.
Okay, we'll talk about that later. Yeah. If that ain't ever happened to you, you ain't no deer hunter anyway.
Yeah,
So
yeah, that was tight squeeze.
yeah.
I spotted the deer because of that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
like you said, that's a whole other podcast.
Yeah.
I don't know if I want to go into that too much.
Well, we don't want that to come out. Oh, no pun intended. Well, and I have to bring up this on that question is if I'm hunting my Kansas ground that I've worked really hard on and someone else is not, hunting managed ground, I mean, I'll be the first to admit I'll probably beat you. I have better ground because ground does matter. It truly does. But going back to what Chancey said, I mean, we are strategically, you could mess these farms up so easy, going in with a right wind even, but not thinking through it's going to drop the last 30 minutes and we're going to get bad pulls because it's early season. That's the kind of things that we've learned from and we've put, and then the discipline comes in. Because I think one word a lot too is discipline. Is having the discipline. Again, you got to know things, just like I said, but then the discipline to go, nope, I'm not going in tonight.
We had that same situation on that deer that we're talking about. We skipped a night because we felt like it was too calm and we were getting a bad pull probably on that, and we totally avoided it.
It was the right wind.
Well, this is
but it was too calm,
I'm
Yep.
going to play devil advocate for you guys because I've had this happen to me a million times. So I'm going to ask all you guys. All right, I'm a guy that don't get to hunt a lot. I get to hunt weekends. Yeah, I can't do that. I can't just not go hunting.
So my advocate for that would be to plan that situation out a little bit, to have you can't just have one spot to go hunting, obviously. So if you know that's going to come, we can all look at it. We do this all the time on our places. We don't just set up a spot and say, okay, well, we're going to wait until this wind. Sometimes we do because we have the availability to do that. But if we didn't, we would have another spot set up for a different wind and just deal. And how many deer have we killed in those spots when we hunted with the right wind as opposed to going to the spots we wanted to in the first place? Yeah. And so, accessing that, I always tell everybody is I get that. I mean, I get that you're only weekend, you only got a couple days, but don't go to the spot that you know is going to mess it up. Just try to hunt a different one.
Well, right. I mean, it's kind of like, especially here in Oklahoma, we get a lot of people in Oklahoma that get these big deer on camera, and they, they'll have the deer at 3 in the morning. It's September, it's 70 degrees. All of a sudden, October 1st comes, they go hunt the deer. Well, the deer ain't been in daylight, and it's the same weather. That's the kind of stuff of having the knowledge. But then on top of that, a lot of them even got the knowledge, but they ain't got the discipline. They've been waiting on October 1st. But what happens is you get behind the 8 ball right off the bat. You go hunting. You can't wait for October 1st. You go hunt. Now the big deer knows you're there because we all know what happens. You get the bad pull. The does are there. You're in and out. And this deer knows. And now the rest of the year trying to play catch up. And then we always get this. Yeah, my neighbor, he don't even hunt that much, but he always kills my big deer. Well, there's your answer.
Yeah. You're kind of going into the next question a little bit about the nose and stuff. It's funny. We always say
the question. Yeah,
let the wind dictate where we go most of the time. And this happens, we're like, man, I want to go in there. I know we might be able to kill him tonight, and you're like, well, the wind's not right, because we know that one mistake on a mature deer will be.
When you brought it up too, Daniel, is I've been in a lot of places and shot the biggest deer in places I don't want to be. Is I just let the wind dictate me, and I got that favorite stand over there. But
and I'll use goalposts. We always go back to this. I do it on seminar. We had goalposts there. He was there every day, all the way up until like September 7th. He disappeared. Never had another picture of him. And that night, literally, I just went to there because it was the perfect wind just to hunt. And he walked right in, first time he'd walked in there in a month. And
that's a whole nother seminar there too, because if you're waiting to get the picture before you hunt, you're already a day behind.
Sure.
I think it kind of goes. I mean, even the deer I shot this year in Kansas, we had hung that stand we called the Booner Beanfield. We had our Christmas party. He showed up, went in to hunt the next day, had a perfect wind, and then we didn't have the right. This kind of goes back to discipline. Is we didn't have the right wind to hunt until Tuesday, and that was a Saturday. So literally, me and Ty just sat at the house for 2 days straight and bored out of our minds. Shot my bow probably 100 times, but waited until we had. Now Tuesday we had a big drop. Pressure was going off the roof, but the wind was northeast, and so we went to that stand that we had set for that. So yeah, I mean we could have went and hunted and probably that Sunday and Monday, but more than likely we would have screwed it up. He would have known we were there, and then
Well, then the high pressure system that God gave you wouldn't be worth a nickel.
Not worth a
because
nickel.
it doesn't matter. He
It's
would
already
be
ruined.
going to. Yeah, it'd be
it's already,
ruined.
It's already over.
So anyway, back to the deal, just to finish it up. I mean, can land make a hunter better? Yes, and that. But us hunting land that's good that we've worked at is you still have to be disciplined. You have to, because these big bucks, they don't mess around. And even spooking does and this and that, them big bucks they just learn from everything, and they are disciplined. It's hard to out discipline them. That's what you got to do.
Yep.
Well, and I'll just tell you, before I came and worked and hunted with you guys and Daniel, and I thought that I was a decent enough little hunter, but now looking back, I've learned so much from you guys just in a short amount of period. Like right now, I'm like, how did I ever shoot a deer, right? And I've just learned so much because I'm around obviously a wealth of knowledge, but then also just that experience of being in it. But yeah, I mean, there's just so much to learn, and also goes back to what Daniel said, instincts. I mean, that's just the name of the game.
Well, and Daniel will be the first to tell you, I mean, we're still learning. I mean, I make mistakes all the time. I look at Cole and it's like, dang, I shouldn't have done that. And not to say just so I can be square up with you guys, I'm not disciplined all the time. Sometimes I get in a deal, Cole's out there, and I'm just like, and you gotta get back to it. I mean, I don't know. It's just you're right. I mean, we've learned a lot, and I appreciate you saying that, Chancey. But we're still learning. I think everybody's got to always be, open to that, knowing that you don't got it all figured out.
Yep. Is that it? Is that what we got?
Yeah. What else you got?
We got anything else controversial? We can say it for another one, I
You
guess.
better save that.
So yeah, what makes somebody a better hunter? Can you beat a deer's nose? And when you talk about, you say, we use dead downwind. That's one of our partners. We believe in it, but deer, their nose is pretty incredible. I don't remember what's the scientific thing, decipher however many different smells like that.
28 different smells in a half a second they can decipher. And, again, Cole, we're dead downwind, I would tell you straight up, and they know this. I use dead downwind. We take a shower with it. We use their bags. We do everything that we can. On top of that, I might even grab a cedar limb and rub on me. But I'm going to tell you this right now. I truly believe this. I can spray down with cologne, and I can go play the wind, and you go do whatever, have whatever you want on, and don't play the wind. I think I'll beat you consistently. I just think anybody will. But again, I can take that scenario. If I'm taking every detail, we're taking every detail that we can. We're not, we're not taking any chances after these big bucks. And again, that includes dead downwind and everything we're doing, but it's details along with the wind.
Well, sometimes it's not just about what happens on that particular day. This sense linger and all the rest of it. You might have had, the deer didn't smell you that day, but all of a sudden you walked in and you touched everything. You leaned your back up against the tree, scent was there, but take all the precautions to keep as much scent out of the area as possible. Not just your current situation or deer downwind and what you do. It's every step, every grass, every piece of grass you walk by and brush up against, everything. Every little detail helps.
Yeah, and I mean, that just, I think there's different hunters are different. I'm the guy, you would never see me during season walk up to a rub and touch it. I mean, I'm scared to death. I want to be, I always talk about footprints. I mean, because that's how I had to be up there at the Wallahatchie. When I first started hunting it, I never forget. I'm learning because I'm getting to see. I'd watch television and learn. I'd read magazines and learn. But I remember, guys, I'm sitting there, and I'd walked over there about 40 yards, and I remember not only deer cutting my track, I remember a doe walking out through there, and she's like 50 yards from where I walked and where my trail was, where I'd brushed up against some stuff, that was blowing towards her. She come unwound. I'm thinking, for the longest time, I couldn't figure out. I'm like, what in the world? Was there a coyote over there? And then the more I put it together, I'm thinking, she smelt where my leg brushed up against some brush. And boy, that really got me thinking and going, golly, I want to be so careful, like Daniel's talking about, of where I've been. I don't want him, because I'm going to tell you right now, it can be the difference of him getting up every day and walking around in daylight to him being nocturnal until rut, and then my neighbor kill him.
Mm-hmm. It's funny, when you grow up in the mountains like I did, where you don't see long distance, you really don't get to see the true reaction of deer. We talk about this all the time. And one of the first years I moved here, and we were, at the ranch that we had out there, we fed a spot, and we had to walk in and feed that spot, and we walked about 300 yards down the hill and put out corn, put a camera up to get some pictures. And it was 3 days later, Cody was with me, and we were scouting from a hilltop 2 miles away, and we watched a buck cut across that side hill and stop. And it took me a while to figure out what he stopped. And we watched him. He walked backwards. He walked backwards for almost a half mile until he hit the fence, and then stood there, and then turned and jumped the fence and ran off. And he cut our trail from walking in. We were just normal farmer. We weren't paying that. But it really showed me how intense that type of pressure or that kind of intrusion. We never had a deer on camera and never seen the deer again. Mm-hmm. And so it just, he didn't particularly like that. Some deer, and this is a whole nother topic, some deer are just different. Some deer.
No, I guarantee
you,
yeah.
But to watch that and to learn and just think, I always go back to that and think, what do I touch? What do I do? Because that deer smelled us. I mean, he dead stopped and he stood there, and you could see his hair get up on his back. Like, it freaked him out. And all we did was walk through there.
Well, that brings to this. I remember I was hunting Ali. If you guys remember, it was a 202-inch deer. And I ended up killing the deer, and he was like 176 and some change. We found the piece that he broke, and he was 202. But the morning that I had him, I'd watched this deer, and he was coming off the alfalfa. And he was doing basically the same thing every day. And he was coming by this cottonwood where I had a stand hung. And I remember I needed a west wind, and this kind of goes right with what we're talking about. I'd sprayed down that morning. I'd done all the right things, and I remember I got to my hunting spot. I mean, first of all, we looked at the weather, and it was saying west wind. So I'm like, dang, I'm gonna get to hunt this deer. He's coming by this tree every day. That morning, I went to where I was gonna park at the oil well, and I hit the puffer, and it showed west wind, but it was just kind of like this. It just wasn't much of it. And so we took off walking in, and I hit it again, and all of a sudden it pulled west, and then it pulled east, and it did all this, and then it pulled back west. But I had such a desire to hunt this deer. I'm thinking, well, it ended up straightening out. And I went in, and I got in that set that morning. And, we had that little west kind of barely hitting us and this and that. And sure enough, there's Ali. He's coming off the alfalfa. Sure enough, there's that bush that I'd watched him go by. Sure enough, here he comes down the creek. He's coming. Everything's good. But, guys, I knew I shouldn't be there. I'm already just in knots. The deer gets to 71 yards, and I feel it. It hits the back of my neck. To Daniel's deal, this deer, being a big mature buck, he drops. His eyes are, it's just like swirling in his head. Mm-hmm. And he's thinking. And all of a sudden he just.
Like a rat in a cage.
Yes. He just goes behind some sage there. And we're like, dude, where'd he go? He was like a ghost. I'll never forget it. And I never saw him appear. This was October 1st. I hunted this deer another 30 days. And consecutively. And I found this deer on October 29th. He stood up in a plum thicket at 11 o'clock to take a leak. That's the next time I saw him. That's the next time I had him on camera. And that's what we're dealing with, especially certain deer. And these are things that taught me, that molded me. People are like, man, you are intense when you hunt these deer. Dang right. And that's what I love.
Yeah, it's pretty. Whitetail deer are incredible, boy.
Well, that's probably good for this one. You got a walk by faith outro or anything you want to do?
Well, we talked this morning a lot about, we're in a study that we're doing, pleasing God. I just think, it talks about that being one of the most important things, and we're going through, what do we have, 58 different verses this morning that we're and you could probably Google and just say, show me scripture on pleasing God, and then whatever we do while we're hunting, we go to the backwoods show this weekend, whatever. I think the more time that we spend with God and in our Bibles and in prayer, that gives those opportunities, and it gives us to be able to see those opportunities. We'll probably, Cole, be in front of a lot of people at Backwoods Show, and we're going to be talking a lot of deer, but knowing right now, God's given me a heart to know that there'll probably be people that are hurting too. And those are the opportunities that, we need to be prayed up and to be able to help wherever we're at with someone. That's what I believe God wants us to do, and to be that example, to be that witness.
Yeah, to always be available to share the word.
Sure.
So guys, with that, we'll be at the Backwoods Show. It starts March 3rd, right? So this Friday, it'll be at the Oklahoma City Fairgrounds. It's Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I don't know the exact times when it opens and closes. Probably like 9 to 6.
It opens in the morning and closes in the evening. I do know that.
Yeah. So we'll be there a little later this week. Again, we leave in the morning, take Anthony, and go on this hog hunt.
We fix and go get bloody, I believe. We're going to go at it.
Yeah, we're going to have a good time. So thanks, guys, for listening to episode 2 of Between the Brows. And remember,
don't be mad at us.
Well, if you're mad, just send all your messages to Jeff. he can respond to all of them. But thanks, guys. Remember, as we always say, shoot by sight, walk by faith.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.